So, my husband Landon, 36 years old, and I, 44 years old, have been together for 12 years and married for 9. We have pretty much been soulmates and get along for the most part, except for when it comes to my in-laws. I don't know why, but my in-laws have never really liked me or accepted me as a part of the family. I honestly did not know what the real reason was until a couple of days ago when they finally announced it at their anniversary party. Anyway, before I get into that, I need to give you guys some context about the kind of situation that I'm in. Landon is what one would call a house husband. When we got married, 1 year into our marriage, we realized that I was making a lot more money than he was since I was working at my dad's electric appliance business and training to take over once he retired. He said that he wanted to be at home and take care of household chores because he really hated his job and thought that it was a waste of time. I thought it was a pretty big decision to make, but as long as he was fine with it, I was fine with it as well. It was a mutual decision, and we have been sticking to that for the past 8 years. My father retired almost 6 years ago, and since then, I have been the CEO of our company. I don't mean to brag, but I make a lot of money. My husband is happy, and so am I. I don't really understand why anybody else would have a problem with it. But for some reason, my in-laws had just assumed that he was the primary breadwinner of the family. To be fair, we had never really told them about our situation, but honestly, that was just because my in-laws are very old school and orthodox. I knew for a fact that if they got to know that he was a house husband and was not actually working, they would completely lose their minds. He said that he did not want to go through the trouble of telling them the truth. So, we had never told them about the situation, and they didn't actually know that he had not been working for the past 8 years. Whenever we met them, we would pretend that he was still working at his previous company, but did not get into the details of it and would change the topic as soon as it came up because we did not think it was important enough to be discussed. That way, we were able to avoid a lot of awkward discussions and unnecessary conversations, and we were happy that way. And on top of that, they already did not like me by the time Landon and I got married, so I did not want to make things worse for myself by telling them the truth about our marriage, that he stayed at home and took care of our household, and I was the one who worked and brought home the money. A lot of you might be wondering why I still tried to get along with them and kept in touch with them even though it was very clear that they didn't like me. So, even Landon has apologized to me for all of this several times, but there was just no way that we could just cut them out of our lives permanently. And that's because my mother-in-law, Sheila, is a cancer survivor and has had to battle 2 types of cancer in the past 8 years. First, she was diagnosed with skin cancer, and then a couple of years later with brain cancer. She's a very lucky lady who has survived both, and is in remission as of now. But after she has been through so much, we just couldn't find it in ourselves to cut them off. And if that was not bad enough, my father-in-law, Bob, has had 2 heart attacks in the past 4 years. So, I guess you guys can understand the position that we were in, and why we could not cut them out of our lives. In spite of their weird behavior around me, I wouldn't say that they were rude or nasty to me like some other in-laws are. But whenever I was around, they were always very cold with me, and it was something that everybody in the room could pick up on. Even when I was dating Landon and I had met their family for the first time, they had been a bit off. But after we got married, they got even more distant and cold. However, given their condition, I decided to just suck it up and deal with it because I didn't want to be the person who told Landon to cut his parents out of his life just because they were a bit weird around me. He was extremely thankful to me for it. The real reason I felt really bad for them was because I had lost my mother to cancer a couple of years before I met Landon. So, I did not want to make matters worse for them, and I would try to even help them financially whenever I could. Both of them are retired, so they would sometimes ask Landon to help them out with certain expenses that they needed to be covered. Landon did not exactly have any money, so I would be the one who wrote them a check. But I would always make it out to be from both Landon and I because if it was just me, then it would seem a bit suspicious. And we didn't want them to be able to figure out that Landon was not working in the past 8 years. Every event that they have had, every vacation that they have taken, every fancy thing that they have ever done has been thanks to me. So, I would think that they would be a little thankful because even though, according to them, it was both Landon and I contributing to their finances, I still believe that if I was part of it, then I deserved a bit of appreciation. but I never had any luck with them, and recently, I even organized their anniversary party for them to celebrate their 40th year of marriage. Of course, according to them, it was both Landon and I who organized the entire thing, but I was still a part of it. So, I thought that they would be thankful to me. However, at the party, they decided to make a speech, and it was a particularly nasty one. And I think after that, there's no going back to having a relationship with them. In retaliation, I cleared up certain things that I think were long overdue. Anyway, as soon as we had shown up at the party, Landon's parents had started acting weird almost immediately. I could not figure it out at the time, but when they were making the speech, I realized that it was because of my new car. So, a couple of weeks ago, I bought a fancy new luxury car for myself. Landon is still driving his old one because he doesn't really go out that much, and if the two of us need to show up anywhere, we get around together in my car. But that day, Landon had showed up at his parents' house in the afternoon, and I had to come by in the evening after work. So, we had come separately, and I had driven my own car there, and I guess that had rubbed Landon's parents the wrong way. When they were asked to make a speech for the anniversary, they said that they were celebrating 40 years of being together, but they also wanted to take the moment to talk about something that had been bothering them. And then they turned to me and started saying that they really did not appreciate the fact that I was mooching off of their son for so long, and they wanted to put an end to this. For years, they had not said anything about it because they thought that I would change, but it had been almost 9 years, and it was going to be a decade, but I had not changed my ways. Then they went on to talk about how I had bought a new car, and it was so shameless of me to do so on my husband's money while their son is still driving around an old car. They also said that it was not lost on them that their son dressed so modestly, and I was always dressed up in expensive brands from head to toe, which they felt was a very brazen and unnecessary display of my dependence on my husband. They wanted to address this issue publicly because they had stayed quiet for long enough, and now they wanted to make me realize that I was being a gold digger. After that speech, I completely lost it because all the guests were staring at me, and being called to me was one thing, but humiliating me like that publicly was just not acceptable. So, I decided to take over the event. Then I went on to make my own speech where I cleared everything up. And since then, Landon's parents have been constantly bothering us because they think that we made a fool out of them. For the record, Landon himself does not have a problem with whatever I said because he knows that it's the truth and it is going to come out at some point eventually. Anyway, once they were done with their speech, I got on stage, and they tried to get me to shut up by saying that it was not necessary for me to have a debate with them at that point. But I told them that not only was it necessary, it was very important for them to hear me out as well. So, I went on to clarify that for the past 8 years, Landon had not had to work a day in his life, and it was all thanks to me. I told everybody in the family about the secret that we had been keeping from them for so long and said that Landon was actually a house husband, and I was the breadwinner of the family. So, contrary to what my in-laws believed, I was actually financing them all along, and they had been ungrateful enough to make a horrible speech about me in public. I also told them that Landon wore modest clothes and drove an old car around by his choice, but nobody could ever accuse me of depriving him of anything or making him feel small like they had been trying to do to me. I said that maybe not telling them the truth about our financial situation was my mistake, but that probably would not have changed the situation, and they still would have found a reason to hate me. Because for the past 8 years, every time that we have helped them out with money, it had always made it very clear that I had an equal part to play in supporting them. But even then, they were never grateful for it. We had lied to them, but it was for our own peace of mind because even before we had started lying to them about this situation, they had still disliked me for no reason. And since the truth was finally out, I did not see any reason for me to stick around and get insulted by them anymore. Landon and I left, but before we left, we got a good look at everybody's faces and the crowd of people that were there, and all of the guests were disgusted by what was going on. Anyway, after we got home, it felt like a burden had been lifted off our shoulders since we had been keeping up with these lies for the past 8 years, and now that it was finally out, we had nothing to worry about anymore. But the next day, Landon's parents called him up and told him that what had happened at the party was incredibly wrong. We had thought that they were going to apologize or at least attempt to sort things out with us, but they said that we were horrible people for lying to them for so long. And even worse, I was a terrible person for making that humiliating speech against them and making them seem like bad parents. First things first, I do not think that I made them seem like anything. I just held up a mirror to them. I might just agree with the fact that we were wrong for lying, but honestly, what other choice did we have? If we hadn't lied to them, they probably would have made life a nightmare for us by constantly bothering us about our situation and harassing Landon to get a job. He wouldn't even be able to cut them off because of their illnesses, and we would have gone crazy with guilt if we did that. So, I can still justify the lying bit because they had already disliked me from the beginning, even before we did anything. But I can't understand why they had always hated me, even though they knew that I was also contributing to helping them out financially when they needed it. Because all the checks that we made out to them always had my name on it along with his. When Landon demanded an answer for that, they had nothing to say, and they tried to switch the topic back to how we had lied to them for years. And then with that speech, we had made everybody that they knew hate them almost instantly. But Landon insisted that they tell us why they hated me so much, because at this point, we needed to know. Because they also knew that I had played a huge role in organizing the anniversary party for them and had spoken to all the vendors and everything. They had believed that we were splitting the cost of organizing it, and they could actually see for themselves that I had been speaking to all the vendors. But even then, it was not enough for them. So, after everything that I had done for his family, his parents still wanted to hate me. He was saying all these things, but then I heard screaming from the other end, and Landon's mother was being so loud that I could actually hear her even though I was sitting a few inches away from him. She said that we have been gaslighting them for years, and she was never going to forgive that. And now, because of my speech, everybody in their life hated them, and she was just disgusted with both of us. Then she hung up, and they have been texting him a lot, saying that we need to tell them how much money they owe us because they don't want to take any sort of favors from me. They wanted to return everything that I have helped them out with so far, even if it meant that they would have to sell everything that they had because they had their son helping them. But if it was me, they did not want it because I was a liar. Now, I'm feeling weird about all of this, and I feel really guilty. Am I the a-hole for lying to my in-laws about my husband having a job and for making a speech at their anniversary party to expose the truth? Update 1. Hey there, so let me fill you in on what's been happening. It's been a week since the party where everything kind of blew up, and Landon and I have made a pretty big decision. We decided it's best for our sanity to just block my in-laws and try to move past all the mess. Honestly, trying to talk things out with them is like talking to a brick wall. It feels like they're always on the lookout for reasons to dislike me, and truth be told, they've pretty much never been on my side. Looking back, I can see where we might have messed up. We kept some pretty big secrets from them for a long time, which obviously made them feel super betrayed when everything came out. I get that nobody likes being kept in the dark, but deep down, I really don't think being upfront from the start would have made them like me any better. It's just the vibe I always got from them. We kept in touch mostly because I felt terrible about all the health problems they were dealing with. I didn't want to be the reason Elle got cut off from his folks. But after what went down at the party, Landon has reached his limit. He's been really down about it, apologizing to me every single day since, thinking it's all his fault. I keep telling him that he can't control his parents' actions. It's not his fault they act the way they do. What's been comforting, though, is how many of his relatives have reached out to show their support for me. They've told me they understand where I'm coming from and that what his parents did at the party was totally out of line. It seems like most of his family has started distancing themselves from his parents too. And while it's kind of sad, they're just an old couple at the end of the day. I can't say it makes me happy despite how they've treated me. I can't just shut off my feelings. I mean, they're still people, right? I don't enjoy seeing anyone isolated or lonely, even if they haven't been the kindest to me. But I also can't go around telling everyone else how to handle their relationships with them. It's a personal decision whether or not to keep in contact, and I don't feel it's my place to interfere with that. Honestly, all of this drama has just drained me. I'm at a point where I just want to put it all behind me and focus on moving forward. That's why Landon and I have decided to take a short trip this weekend. We think it'll be good for us to get away from all the tension and stress. It's sort of a mini vacation from our problems, and honestly, it couldn't come at a better time. We're really looking forward to this getaway. It's not just about escaping the drama. It's about giving us both some space to breathe and think things through without any outside noise. It's been such a chaotic time, and the idea of just being somewhere else, even for a few days, sounds like bliss. We're planning to go to a quiet little spot we both love, where we can just relax and enjoy each other's company. No family disputes, no tense dinners, just us and some peace and quiet. This trip is kind of a silver lining amidst all the turmoil. It's a chance for us to reconnect, reflect on how we want to handle things moving forward, and just enjoy being together without any distractions. After all, at the end of the day, it's our peace and our little family that matter the most. We're hoping that a bit of distance from everything will help us clear our heads and come back feeling refreshed and ready to tackle whatever comes next with a clearer perspective. Update 2. So, a couple of days ago, Landon and I blocked Bob and Sheila everywhere. We left no stone unturned to make sure that they would not be able to contact us. And yesterday, we left in the morning so that we could take a short trip to the beach. But I just received a phone call from the alarm company saying that they had detected somebody trying to break into our house, which had set the alarms off. And I was instantly willing to bet my entire bank balance that it had to be Bob and Sheila. As soon as I received that phone call, I logged into the security cameras to review the footage, and of course, it was them. We noticed that they had been standing outside our door, ringing the bell for almost 15 minutes before they tried to get in other ways. And they managed to do so by doing the craziest thing. They broke the glass bay window in our living room to get in by grabbing bricks that they had brought along with them, probably for this particular purpose. I made a note of that so that I would be able to sue them later on and get my money back because it was a pretty expensive door to get installed in the first place. It was also very brave of them to try that given their age and circumstances. Anyway, after that, they got in, and they hadn't yet left when I received that phone call from the alarm company. We are still spending the weekend here on the beach, and we will deal with everything later once we get back to the city. Update 3. Okay, let me lay it all out for you because there's a whole lot to unpack from what's been happening lately. So as I kind of suspected might happen, the district attorney ended up dropping all the charges against them. Now here's a little tidbit that might explain why Landon let slip that his dad has a buddy who's somehow linked to the D. Sounds a bit sketchy, right? It makes the whole situation feel pretty unfair, like maybe they got a pass because of who they know, not what's right or wrong. But after mulling it over, I've decided not to push this issue any further. It just doesn't seem worth the extra stress or the battle it would entail. Then we took a day to thoroughly inspect our house, like a full-on detective sweep, checking every little corner and hiding spot. What did we find? Absolutely nothing was missing. They hadn't swiped anything or even really damaged anything inside our home. To be completely honest, I'm still scratching my head over what they were even doing in our house. But one thing they definitely did was smash our glass door, and I'm not about to let that go without some consequences. I'm planning on sending them a legal notice to demand they pay for the replacement of the glass door. I've already sent them an email laying it all out. They need to pay back every single dime they owe us. They were the ones who were so vocal before about knowing their debts, insisting they didn't want to owe me even a single dollar. Well, now it's their turn to step up and return the favor by paying back everything I've ever spent on them. We sat down and did the math, and over the last 9 years, they've racked up quite the bill, almost $80,000. Yes, that's right, $80,000. And now they owe me every penny until they've cleared their debt. I might have felt a twinge of guilt about demanding this much back before the break-in incident, but now my sympathy has pretty much evaporated. Even Landon is on my side about this. He thinks we're doing the right thing and believes we should have addressed this a lot sooner. You see, I've always tried to be the kind of person who's generous and kind-hearted, but it seems like some people just don't appreciate that. After chatting with my lawyer, he confirmed that the security footage clearly shows they were responsible for the damage to our glass door, so there's no question they're going to have to cover the cost for that. Now when it comes to recouping the rest of the money, that's where things get a bit more complicated. Since there wasn't any formal contract or legal document outlining the terms of what they owe, it's going to be a tough battle. My lawyer isn't too optimistic about our chances there, but you know what? I'm not just going to sit back and let this slide. I plan to keep on them, sending emails and reminders about the debt until they pay up, or at least until one of us gets too tired to keep going. And I'm really hoping they wear out before I do. To be completely upfront with you, it's not like I desperately need the money, but after all the stress, embarrassment, and hassle they've caused, I can't just ignore it. How they've acted, breaking into our home, the audacity of it all, it's just too much to overlook. I've endured too much because of them, and now it's time for them to make things right, starting with that broken door and moving on to clearing their debt with me. It's about principles at this point, and I'm standing firm on getting what's owed. Update 4. Hi, so a couple of weeks ago, we sent a legal notice to my in-laws and demanded that they cough up the money that they owe for replacing the glass door in our house. Honestly, it was a very easy process, and within 2 weeks, we were able to come to a settlement, and they paid us the amount in full. The worst part was not actually that, it was having to see them. And after that, the interaction that took place when we met with our lawyers. We had to maintain decorum, so they didn't exactly get to behave like crazy old people. But once we were out in the parking lot, it was anybody's guess. I had figured that they wouldn't have anything to say to us anymore, and we were about to go home. Landon and I had driven there in my car, that new one. And obviously, I should have guessed that they had a huge problem with it and just automatically thought that I was trying to rub my wealth in their faces. Sheila came right up to me while Bob stood behind her, and she spat on the ground beside my feet and told me to get out of there as quickly as I could because otherwise I would regret it, and I was caught totally off guard. And then she said that this is exactly what I deserved for humiliating them at their party because now nobody wants anything to do with them, and it's all my fault. When Landon came to my side and said that this was unacceptable behavior, she told them that she didn't even want to speak to him because he was just as nasty as I was, and he was a humongous loser who had no money of his own, so he had no right to say anything. And then I don't know what got into Bob, but he climbed onto the hood of the car and then punched the windshield so hard that not only did he injure himself, but he also managed to crack the windshield a bit. Sheila thought she was being very cool, and then she said that I did not need to worry because she would also send me the money to get that fixed along with what she already owed me. But Landon and I were dumbstruck and had no idea how to react to that. We would have called the cops, but they were already let off with just a slap on the wrist once, and we were pretty sure that it was going to happen again. Anyway, we decided to ignore that because we were going to get the money back anyway, so nothing mattered to us. All we wanted to do was move on. And we don't really care if they get punished or not because after this, they're going to be on their own, and I think that's punishment enough for them. We don't need to get the law involved anymore since we had just done, and we don't want to get into the hassle of all of that. So that's what happened, and now we're just looking forward to living a peaceful life and having nothing to do with either Bob or Sheila anymore because they are just not worth our time or energy. Earlier, I had said that I did not want them to be completely isolated from the rest of the family. But I think now I have changed my mind. Landon has contacted most of his relatives and told them about everything that has happened, and he has said that from this point forward, if they are invited to any family get-togethers or other holidays, the two of us will not be attending. And most people have responded positively to that. Nobody has anything nice to say about them and said that they want nothing to do with these people, especially after what they found out about them from us. The line has been drawn, and it's not going to be crossed anymore. Update 5. Hey everyone, it's been almost a whole year since I last updated here, and you won't believe the roller coaster we've been on. First off, big news, I'm pregnant. We discovered this a couple of weeks ago, and honestly, we weren't exactly planning this. It kind of took us by surprise, especially since I'm nudging closer to my late 30s. But despite the initial shock, it felt absolutely right. Everyone is super thrilled about the baby, and we decided the best way to share our joy was to throw a big party to announce our pregnancy. We invited loads of friends and family, really aiming for a celebration to remember. Now, for the unexpected part, guess who decided to show up uninvited an hour before the party even started? Yep, it was Sheila and Bob. You might remember the drama they stirred up a year ago. Well, it seems they haven't changed much. Here's the backstory for those who might not remember. When Sheila found out about the pregnancy, she suddenly switched gears and said she wanted to put all past issues behind us and start fresh, especially since she was going to be a grandmother. But given everything that happened before, I was wary. I had this nagging feeling that her intentions weren't as pure as she claimed. So when Sheila and Bob showed up at our doorstep right then, something in me snapped. I recalled all the hurt from the past year. In a moment of raw emotion, I spat on the ground right in front of them as a sign of disdain and told Sheila to get lost, mirroring the harsh dismissal she gave me last year. Then, with all the pent-up frustration, I slammed the door shut. They didn't leave right away, though. They kept ringing the doorbell, hoping to be let in. After a few minutes of relentless doorbell ringing, I opened the door again. I was firmer this time, warning them that if they didn't leave, I would call the police and ensure that things wouldn't end smoothly for them like they might have before. They then demanded to speak with Landon, probably thinking he might be more lenient or willing to hear them out. Landon, however, was having none of it. He stepped up and faced them, saying since he wasn't the primary breadwinner and felt like he hadn't accomplished much, he didn't see himself as worthy to engage in any conversation with them. He suggested it was in their best interest to just leave. His words seemed to cut deep, and feeling sufficiently humiliated, they finally turned and left. The relief was immense, not just because they had left, but because this confrontation gave me the clarity I needed to take more concrete steps to ensure our safety and peace of mind. Now, with a baby on the way, I'm taking no chances. I plan on getting a restraining order against them. The idea is not just about keeping them away physically, but also about safeguarding our emotional well-being. I want to create a stress-free environment for our baby, and that means making sure that the chaos they bring is nowhere near our lives. The support from our friends and family has been overwhelming, and they all agree that getting the restraining order is the right move. It's not just about what happened at the party. It's about ensuring a safe and peaceful future for our child. I'm determined to keep it that way, and I will do whatever it takes to protect this little bubble of happiness we've created. So that's where we are now, looking forward to a brighter, quieter future, and really focusing on the positives that lie ahead. Despite the initial drama, the party was a success, and it felt amazing to be surrounded by so much love and support as we prepare for this new chapter in our lives. I'm more committed than ever to maintaining peace and ensuring that our little one arrives into the most loving and serene environment possible.